Hey, everybody, welcome to Poduty in the News for Saturday, March 3rd, 2026. I've got Toni Will joining me from Women in Podcast and Empower Her. We got a great episode coming up, 6 live stories about live podcasting. Toni, I have one question for you. Do you know what time it is?
Yeah, it's 10:01 a.m. Eastern.
What time is it?
Toni, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. It's so good to be here.
So glad to have you. It's a Saturday morning. It's finally, I think winter has broken here in Western Pennsylvania. We're going to have like 70 degrees and thunderstorms. So that's kind of like Western PA spring.
You know what? I'm in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and it's similar. There will not be the 70s, but it will be warmer than the winter we've had. So we'll take it.
Well, when I ask guests to be on the show, I always look for things that are parallel. And you have some great experience. You have some great coaching experience. You have TEDx experience. You're a podcast host. You're producing events. I couldn't think of a better person to talk about 6 live podcast stories with on a Saturday morning than you, Toni.
I'm excited to do this. This is going to be fun, and I love what you're putting together here. Plus, that theme song is pretty kick-ass. So
That's my jam. Well, tell us a little bit about the Women in Podcast and the Empower coming up. You got it coming up, you said it, next week.
Yes. So Women In, ... is a podcast I created nearly 2 years ago. My day job is a general manager and governor of a men's AA professional hockey team. And I have found that one of my passions is lifting women up in male-dominated industries because, not surprising, hockey is actually one of the most white and male-dominated sports, both inside the sport, not just the athletes, but the front office, as well as the audience and the fans and the season ticket holders. So I decided to create a space to lift women up. I have men and women on the podcast. And because men came from women, men have important women in their lives. And I just felt like we want to talk about those people as well as the story of the person I'm interviewing. So that's what we're doing, about 165 episodes in. And I don't have enough time on my calendar to do all the interviews that are sent my way. So it's a pretty fun space to be in.
That's incredible. And is there a single point you like to send people to just get a flavor for, to start, experiencing the Women in Podcast?
ToniWill.com. If you click on Explore, every episode is dropped there, but it is on every single podcast platform you could think of that you've heard of or haven't heard of.
It's search Women in ...
You got it.
Awesome. And the Empower coming up the next weekend, same link. I can find it through ToniWill.com.
Yes, that is an actual event I put on. It's a conference to lift women up professionally or personally. And at the end of the conference, we go to a K-Wings, Kalamazoo Wings, the team I general manage, a hockey game. And it's our annual Green Ice game. That is what we're known for in Kalamazoo, Michigan, next Saturday. And that's at ToniWill.com as well.
Awesome. Oh, like they actually do turn the ice green?
We do. We turn the ice green. We dye it green. We started that back in 1982, and it started with green ice for St. Patrick's Day. And over the years, it's evolved, and we are the only team actually in professional hockey to dye the ice rainbow. We do that every year as well.
That's incredible. Check it out. I'll put all those links in the show notes. Check it out at news.poduty.com. Toni, are you ready for our stories?
I am. I'm excited about this. So lay them on me.
I really tried to find a live hockey podcast, but I couldn't find any. I did find some sports podcasts that are doing live events, and this is very important of what we're talking about. How do you connect your show with your community? How do you find the people that are interested in what you're talking about? Many times you just go to where they're at. And this is a great example. The Players Box podcast has taken over the Foundation Plaza stage at the Miami Open and going live on day one at the Hard Rock Stadium. Madison, Jessica, Desiree, and Jennifer are turning a major WTAE tournament into a live podcast activation. And this is what I love about this. The grounds are free that day. The fans are already there. And now you're giving them access to personality, humor, and behind-the-scenes stories in real time. This is athletes owning their voice, building audience, and creating an experience beyond the match. This is exactly where podcasting live wins. And this is something I talk about here at this theater space is get in front of your audience, get in front of the people who are interested, and they're taking this experience to a tournament. They love tennis. They're talking tennis with tennis fans. It's free, open to the public. They have nearly 11,000 YouTube subscribers, and they started this last year. So this is already year 2. They're coming back to do it again, which means they must have found some success, and they were invited back to do their show again. And this is kind of that model of embedding yourself where your audience is. And I just love this strategy for any podcast, no matter what you talk about. Go find where your audience is. Sit down with them. Enjoy conferences and events like this. And any kind of takeaways that you had from the live event here at the Miami Open?
Yeah, so this is an area as a podcaster that I have stepped into, and I find it to be really important from brand building and building an audience. I just did a live podcast in front of 400 people last week in St. Louis for the National Sports Forum. And this is the second year I've done that. And again, as I talked about my podcast, Women In, it's about lifting women up. So what a great activation throughout this 4-day event in St. Louis to lift women up, have men come and witness the podcast too. And so the audience is growing, the message is well received, and I'm doing it again at my conference at Empower Her. And that guest that I'm interviewing at that is my husband. And so to talk about being married to a type A driven person, so my audience can really relate to that as I'm trying to empower these women. So it is, I tell you, it's hands down a great idea, and to lean more into that as a podcaster, I think is smart.
And you referenced something very important that I've been talking about a lot, and you're executing on this idea, which is part of the entertainment now at conferences isn't just having a music act between sessions or keynotes or a comedian come up on stage. Many times, part of the experience of a conference now is a live podcast. They're even replacing panels in many cases, where instead of having a panel of 4 people answering questions from the audience, they're bringing in podcasts as the entertainment. Is that something that you're looking at now and you're actually doing, I think, now at the Empower?
Yeah, I'm doing it now. And I did it even at like summer league meetings. I do it at that because I created a women in sports resource group within our league, within the ECHL, and we do summer meetings, and I bring the podcast there too. It is a great way for the audience to engage and learn something new without it being a conference setting, because people get tired after going session to session to session. So this is a great way. If you're a podcaster, figure out a way to pitch yourself to these type of conferences or meetings or events in a way that is people are still learning, so there's value, but it's not the same old panel or keynote or things like that.
Yeah, I love hearing that you're doing that. That's incredible. It's such a great strategy, a great way to really bring the community together around that central topic. You know that they're already interested in what you talk about because they're there. Why not entertain them with the thoughts and the leadership of the industry that you're already immersed in? Share those ideas and concepts in real time. You give them the value that they came to get, and you can get that from a live podcast setting.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, let's go to story number 2. This one's one that we see a lot happening on universities. Not only are conferences bringing in entertainment as podcasts, but universities now are embracing podcasting as entertainment, and Brittany Broski is taking her audience from the screen to the stage at Syracuse University with A Royal Evening with Brittany Broski. She built nearly 15 million followers online, launched one of the top streamed podcast debuts in the country with The Broski Report, and now she's filling auditoriums with students who want to see it live. The event is free, it's first come, first serve, And that tells you something important. Universities are understanding that creators are culture. When you bring that energy into a live room, you create a connection that algorithms cannot replicate. That's the power of the live podcasting style events. And this is free for all students. The university is covering the cost. It's in the Goldstein Auditorium. She was named one of Forbes 30 under 30 as a content creator. And this is another example of a university embracing podcasting as entertainment, keeping kids entertained, keeping them motivated, and showing them what's possible after they leave their 4 years of education.
Yeah, and I want to point out something really cool about her show is the utilization of her name, Broski, and with that college audience. I think that's super smart. And I've been guests on podcasts where they've used their name, their last name, as a way to, I don't know, double entendre or just be clever and draw in an audience. And I should have done that with my name. I don't know why I haven't, but maybe one day. But not Toni, the will part. But I like the use of her name and also the free to drive people in, because the free equals followers, and then you can monetize.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, you have a great name, especially for a website to have an 8-letter domain name. It's balanced, first name, last name are both 4 letters. It's perfectly balanced. I wouldn't change too much about it. Toni Will is the brand.
I know. And it's weird when you're your own brand, like your name is your brand. Anyway, it's like a weird bipolar thing. But yeah, I mean, Broski Report. I mean, come on. Brilliant.
We call this, you said, the double alliteration. We have the Poduty podcast, and then theater always bothers me. It's the Poduty podcast theater. I love to have the triple P sound, but I don't know what to put in there instead of a theater.
We'll have to think about that.
Well, let's think about it on our next story, where true crime takes the stage. At the Departure Music Conference in Toronto, Alan Cross is taking his podcast, Uncharted Crime and Mayhem in the Music Industry, and performing it live at the Jane Malay Theater. This is a true crime music podcast stepping into full stage presentation inside a major industry conference. Pre-sales are launching, tickets are moving, and this proves something important. When you build a strong narrative podcast, you are not limited to just downloads. You can put it on the stage, sell seats, turn it into an experience. This is the evolution of podcasting. This is happening during a conference from May 4th to 10th. It's like an industry event for music. And his performance will be May 7th. And this is that blend again of conferences with a podcast crossover. It's an all-ages event. They're bringing in everybody. They're talking music and crime. What better way to spend a week?
I got to tell you, this one is brilliant. And I don't know the stats, but true crime is a hobby for some people, like the listenership in that area. And you're looking at a big true crime fan right here. I mean, I was watching Dateline this morning, okay, the most recent episode. So this is a big market. And the fact that they partnered it with music, I don't know how you get any better. I'll be intrigued to see the outcome of that event. Really cool.
All these things that we talk about, there's probably something similar happening near you. So when you see the independent media creators doing an event in your hometown, go support them. There's probably a music podcast doing something live at a bar or a venue. There's probably true crime things happening in your area. Go check it out. Go support your local area. Support the local creators. Show them you're coming out. You want to get out. You want more of these types of events.
Absolutely. And then one of the things that I get often asked about a lot in my professional life, actually in my personal life too, or creating a podcast, like, how did you know how to do these things? I'm like, well, I didn't. But I lean on my leadership pillars that I created in pro hockey to take me through other parts of my life. And so leadership pillar number 1 is go to the experts. So by going to these shows, to your point, you're going to another expert. And the leadership pillar number 2 is innovate. Take that idea and make it your own. And I think that it's so smart to think about it in that way. And also, you don't need to know how, just start.
Yeah, the best time to innovate is when you don't fully know everything. When you're just coming into a new idea, a new topic, a new industry, everybody who's in that industry is kind of set in their ways already. It's established, there's a hierarchy, they understand how things work, that's the order. But you have fresh eyes, you have fresh perspective, you have experiences from outside that industry that you can bring in, and you may see it completely different, those first 6 months, a year, when you're really diving into something new, that's when you can mold it, create it your own, and make something new in that industry that never existed before. But like Toni says, you have to show up. You have to do the work. You have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to learn and absorb like a sponge. But as you do that, slowly start to make it your own. Give it your ideas, give it your perspective, give it your experiences, and make something completely new in that industry, and you'll start to find an audience.
Absolutely. And you hit on leadership pillar number 3, and you didn't even know I had these things, but it's make mistakes. So you nailed it.
Is it in the book? I'll put the link in the book when it comes out.
They are. All this stuff is in my book. Yeah.
Well, I don't. If you're not announcing it yet, but once you do announce it, we will have the link to purchase it in the show notes.
Yeah. The book goes on sale Friday, so I can announce whatever you need right whenever you're ready.
Well, then the link. Is there pre-orders available?
Yeah, that's what goes on Friday. Rebellious Success, Friday, March 13th.
All right, we'll have that in the show notes. Let's go to our next story. I'll keep it rolling, I think, on this one. This is 540 episodes from. This is one of those industries where you never thought you'd hear a podcast from. And I love hearing new ideas and new industries doing podcasting. And this is the Cleveland Moto Podcast. They just dropped their episode number 540. And that's the kind of longevity that tells you something important about podcasting. This is a niche show built around motorcycle culture, road trips, gear talk, and a tight community of riders who keep coming back week after week. The numbers aren't massive, but the connection is real, and that's exactly why niche podcasts survive. When you serve a passionate community, the audience sticks with you for years. And when you have that kind of loyalty, turning a podcast into live events becomes a natural next step. And this isn't performed necessarily in front of an audience at a theater, but they're doing live streams every day. They're recording their show, and you can see it's a big cast that's there. There's 4 or 5 people in the room. There's a person on the live stream that pops in, and they all have great nicknames. There was Steve Sleepy, Johnny Mac, Speedy Pete, and they brought up a guy named Robot. So that part I loved as much. And they're talking about bikes and riding motorcycles through Mexico, travel stories. I even heard a tip of where they bought a bike somewhere in South America. They rode it up through Mexico, and then they sold the bike for the same amount of money they purchased it for, and it was a zero-cost trip. It was like this is the kind of thinking that's so outside the box that you would never think about. How do I travel for free? Well, I learned to ride a motorcycle. I buy it, and then I sell it for the same price I bought it.
It's brilliant. And this speaks to this niche podcast, and it's not always about the number of downloads or anything like that, because clearly they're passionate about the topic they're talking about. And there's a lot to be said about being passionate about what you're putting out in the world, because 540 episodes is tremendous. And then you've got that synergy of, in that photo you showed, 5 gentlemen that are passionate about the same thing and collaborating together. And then there's that business side of it, of being able to travel and have that experience for free. What a cool experience to talk about. Loyalty is just so important to that audience. And there's a whole business model for that too.
Yeah, instead of selling tickets or performing live, they're doing live streams and supported by Patreon. So people can subscribe, they can get bonus content. Usually it's $5 to $10 a month, depending on your level. You might get access to special merchandise or exclusive events, private live streams. So there are other benefits to live streaming that isn't just in front of an audience at a theater or an auditorium. You can do it live from your house. You can start to build this concept of performing podcasts live from literally anywhere in the world now.
It's fascinating. It's really cool. I just wrote down a note about Patreon because I started one, but I haven't invested time in it yet because getting my book ready to launch. But that is a great way, because podcasts oftentimes for some start out as a hobby, and I'm looking at it at that way, but it's slowly morphing into something more. So another great example of a different way to look at this and do this podcasting.
Podcasting for me, I grew up in the 80s. I grew up skateboarding. I was a skateboarder for 20 years. I I was into punk rock and hip hop in that time. Very counterculture activities always draw me in for some reason. And podcasting is no different. It is the Wild West. If you have an idea, you can create something, you can make it your own, and you have full ownership over it, which is something that I love about this industry, about having that power to, this is what I created, this is what I put out in the world. That's how I ended up sitting in this room. I'm sitting in a theater space because you can do whatever you want. And that power is, you have to control it. You can't go crazy and do whatever you want, but you're a very liberating feeling to create something that you're passionate about, create something you believe in, create something that you want to share with the world, and you have full rights to it from start to finish. And that punk rock tangent, also, do you want to add on to that?
No, I would just say that, like, and maybe you have a podcast about punk rock, but what you could do if you don't, this week got me thinking, because as my podcast is turning 2 years old, I have 2 more podcast ideas in the works up here in my, what I call my bionic hamster brain, because as I've learned so much, and to have more than one podcast in a niche area, it's fun to start over again when we were talking earlier about being new to the space, because now you can grow and continue to grow your brand.
Yeah, because for a second there, I was like, why am I talking about punk rock? I couldn't remember. I had a point. It was to get to story number 5. I was like, wait, why am I talking about this? This makes no sense. But the transition is Green Day frontman Billy Joe Armstrong recently joined the Men in Blazers podcast for a live event in San Francisco, and it shows exactly where podcasting is heading. Instead of traditional interviews on television or radio, he's now sitting in front of a live audience talking about soccer, music, East Bay culture, and the community spirit behind teams like Oakland Roots. When podcasts move onto the stage, the conversation becomes part interview, part storytelling, and part shared experience with the live audience. That energy is something you simply cannot recreate in a studio. And obviously he was in, I believe, San Francisco for the Super Bowl, did a Super Bowl show before the game started with the band Green Day, but now he's sticking around. He's doing these extra appearances, going on podcasts in front of audience. Now you hear and see a different side of Billy Joe Armstrong, not just this musician who performs on stage, these fast-paced, up-tempo songs, but he also does other things. He has other interests, and he loves talking about that and sharing those stories with what could be a brand new audience.
Absolutely. And by the way, is he getting younger? Is he like Benjamin Button? Because that picture of him, he looks like he's not aged a bit.
Yeah, it was like 35, all forever.
But I love this idea of celebrity, in person, again, drawing, because of what we were experiencing literally 6 years ago to this day, this time of COVID, and that pendulum now is swinging back to gathering together. And then you add the layer of celebrity, Men in Blazers. And I would be remiss if I didn't call out the fact that they had a woman on that stage as well. And I think that's really important when we're talking about, these type of endeavors.
Oh no, I'm going to my next slide, but I put the wrong slide up. We'll fix this in post. So the Billy Joe Armstrong, I'm going to cut all this out. This is why I edited the show. I'm off track now. All because of my one slide. This is what happens. So here's a good lesson for people doing live shows. If you make a mistake during a live show, if you don't acknowledge it, nobody knows. This is the secret of live podcasting. If I didn't say anything and I just didn't put up the next slide, you would have no idea that I screwed up and that it was just part of the show. But now, look at me. I derailed the whole show. I have a slide about fish. It's supposed to be about wrestling. So here we go.
Let's riff it.
Yeah. Let's go to our last story here. Darby Allin found himself in a bizarre live podcast moment when he was kicked out of an Uber mid-interview while promoting an upcoming AEW event on KFMA 102.1. The driver became frustrated that Allin was speaking on a speakerphone during the ride, pulled over, and ordered him out of the vehicle. Allin calmly finished the interview from the side of the road, creating an unintentionally memorable example of how live podcasting can produce unexpected, unpredictable, viral moments. And this is what I love about podcasting. What you just heard me ramble through because I screwed up the last story. Now, that's part of the show. It's part of what happened in the moment. And that's what happened. He was en route to go somewhere, had to do an interview, pulled the interview up on the phone, had a great connection, had great sound, and the Uber driver flipped out on him, threw him out of the car on the side of the highway. That's just the unpredictability of live events, and that was something I really loved seeing.
I mean, come on, talk about just being human. And it's just a real life experience. Kudos to this gentleman for doing a live podcast while traveling. I don't know that I would have it in me to even attempt that because I need to focus. But there's so much about this that I love, and there's courageous, quite frankly. But the human side of this, and then that's going to go viral. So brilliant.
And he was very courteous. He was like, is it okay if I just finish? He was asking permission, and the Uber driver just wasn't having it. The gentleman handled it so well, got out of the car. He's like, I guess I'm going to do the interview from the side of the highway. There's tractor trailers, there's cars zipping by at 80 miles an hour, and it was just chaos, but he continued it, and it was a great interview. It did bring a lot of attention to the AEW and this wrestler in particular.
Yeah, and I would say that I didn't listen to it, but I will. I'm assuming there was a dash of humor in that, a little levity in his situation, and that's always great to bring to a podcast. I think even with heavy topics, sometimes to just lighten it up is very relatable to the audiences.
Yeah, the world around him was crumbling. He kept it positive. He kept it upbeat. He kept the show moving. And he did the opposite of what I just did. So that was my segue into this story.
And you nailed it.
Toni, this goes by so fast. We can believe we covered 6 stories already. One last thing I do before we say goodbye is I turn the floor back over to you. Anything you'd like to plug, promote, talk about, the floor is yours.
Wow. Don't hand me the mic. I'll let it go. So my book, Rebellious Success, is going on sale. Pre-order starts Friday, March 13th. The book is about how the reader defines success in their own way. There is no straight linear line to how we can define success. And I tell stories about my life, the not so pretty ones, and how I changed in order to live the life that I want to live and help others do the same. It's built off, the framework is built off my TEDx, which you can see on YouTube, well over 500,000 views on that. And my podcast, Women In, where I'm lifting women up, Empower Her Conference in Kalamazoo next weekend, Kalamazoo, Michigan. If there really is a Kalamazoo. So if you haven't been there, please come. Tickets are still on sale till March 11th. And the last thing I'll say, and we didn't talk about this today, but one of the things I do is I coach clients all over the world, thank you technology, to help reduce or remove alcohol from their lives. I chose to remove alcohol 5.5 years ago, and it's allowed me, because I have all this time back, to write a book, to launch businesses, to have my podcast, and to do some really great things in the world and help people become the best versions of themselves. So everything is at that 8-letter website, tonywill.com.
It's perfectly balanced. It's so good. I could see like a logo in a box that's like perfectly squared up. But TonyWill.com. Toni, thank you so much for joining us. Do you know what time it is?
Yeah, it's 10:30 a.m. Eastern.
What time is it?